Hi guys, what is up? It's Sandal from Substance Overstar and welcome to a new video. Okay, I don't have any incense today because this video is going to have to be quick. I've had quite a few of you message me saying that you wanted me to speak on the recent Balenciaga situation, and definitely I wanted to speak about it when it broke like 2 days ago. But you know, the agency here has just been keeping me so busy with, you know, castings every day. I mean, as I speak, my phone is like dinging. My phone's been dinging all day with like casting requests and self-tape requests. So yeah, I've been trying to prioritize those, but obviously if I just keep on prioritizing those, I'll never get a video out. And today, a couple of them, like the last two that I received over the last couple of days, I think I can miss some of them because I think two of them are like for a chicken restaurant. One of them is for a certain pharmaceutical company that will not be named. And usually when you do TV commercials for brands like this, they'll ask you to kind of sign something that says that you know of no reason why them using your image could, you know, bring disrepute upon the company in any way. And I cannot honestly answer it for that company, nor do I want to promote them at all. So yes, I'll be missing those castings. And you know, this is the thing that I love about, you know, what I do, other than obviously the healing work that I do here. Is as a model, you know, you're self-employed, you're your own boss, so I can kind of pick and choose who I want to work for, which clients I want to work for. If I don't want to work for a particular client again, I'll just say to my agency I don't want to work for that client again, or I don't want to do those types of jobs. And agencies are pretty understanding these days, especially post Me Too, that models do not want to, that, you know, models will have certain boundaries and certain ethics about promoting certain brands. You know, there's some models who won't promote any gambling products or any alcohol products or any cosmetic surgery products. Me personally, I'm fine with all of those. I will kind of do advertising for those, but I won't do any meat products. I won't do I generally won't do fast food unless it's for a vegan product. You know, I won't do, there's obviously I won't do like anything pornographic or whatever, but there's quite a few things, like I won't do fur, things like that. There's certain lingerie brands that I won't shoot for anymore that I did in the past when I was younger, but now I'm just not comfortable shooting stuff like that. Like, you know, some of the stuff that I used to do, which was like really sexy and revealing. I will do maybe under certain circumstances, but not like in a packed e-commerce studio, which is basically like a factory where they have like 5 different setups and there's loads of people walking in and out all the time. I'm just not comfortable doing stuff like that anymore. So things like that. But anyway, I digress. I wanted to talk about the Balenciaga situation because it's you know, I've spoken about in several recent videos about how the steady slow drip of disclosure, we're going to see this steady slow drip of disclosure over the next couple of years, to the point where it reaches a saturation point and people will not be able to deny what's been happening on this planet. Now, I've said multiple times before that I don't think that there's going to be like a switch that gets flipped where suddenly there's one event and the mainstream media suddenly announce, you know, what's been happening. I'm going to use, as a caveat, I am going to use code words in this video because obviously YouTube has community standards and, you know, censors and you know, certain words. So, you know, that's fine. If I do accidentally use words that I think will flag their algorithm, I will bleep them out or something, or just reduce the volume on them. So obviously the whole thing with Balenciaga has kind of, I know a lot of people in the kind of truth community and the conspiracy camp are going kind of crazy with it. No, I don't want to say going crazy with it, but they're kind of taking it to the nth degree, and they're saying, look, this is exposing the den of vipers, you know, that's been controlling humanity, and, you know, these people and what they get up to. And I don't think that it's that, okay? I'm not saying that it isn't, but I'm just saying that I don't think that this is compelling enough to be able to disclose that level of information to the masses. I just don't think that it is. I don't think that people are completely convinced by it. I think that it's problematic, extremely problematic. But I think also as a community, we have to be very, very careful about who we're going around accusing, because these are really, really serious accusations, and without real evidence, like evidence that proves beyond a reasonable shadow of a doubt that somebody is guilty of XYZ, we shouldn't be accusing them of that, because not only is it not, it's not morally integral to go labeling people, and accusing them of heinous crimes that they are not necessarily guilty of, but it also just, it ruins your credibility. It makes you look like the boy who cried wolf. So I kind of want to approach this situation with a little bit more nuance. Obviously, the situation with Balenciaga, it's extremely, like I've said, it's extremely problematic. There were two separate campaigns. Now, one of them, kids posing with a teddy bear wearing bondage gear, and then you have another separate campaign, stills campaign for accessories, where they have this US Supreme Court decision on, I think it was something, I forget the exact details, but it was something to do with child prawn. So some people, obviously, the conspiracy camp are like, this is like an example of kind of similar to predictive programming, where they have to tell you what they're doing, and I know that this particular video of Andrew Tate, who I very, very much dislike, intensely, to say the least, his video talking about it is going viral, where he's saying that, they have to tell you what they're doing because, and then comparing it to obviously with the recent pandemic that we went through, if they tell you exactly what they're doing and then you still willingly go ahead and participate in whatever it is that they're asking you to participate in, whether it's, buying a certain product or, not speaking out, your silence basically makes you complicit, then you're basically consenting to whatever it is that they're doing to you. So that's his theory on what they're doing. Maybe, I'm not saying that it's not, but I'm just saying that I don't think that necessarily that's what's going on here. I think, and I'm not going to say it's an honest mistake, I'm saying it's kind of more than that. It's revealing a certain problematic culture that people who are, in the public eye, people who are influencers, people who are tastemakers, who work in the fashion industry or the entertainment industry or, Hollywood or whatever, there's a problematic culture and ideology that these people have that they let slip sometimes, These people are not necessarily the most moral, God-sourced Christic people. They're just not. And I'm not saying that to be disparaging. I'm just saying that, a lot of them are lost. They've lost their way, they've disconnected from source, so they don't have that higher authority that they've submitted their life to, which is, to live by principles of universal law and being a good and moral person. Now, I've worked in the fashion industry for nearly 20 years, so I know what the culture is like. It's generally, I'm not saying everybody in the industry is like this, but it can be extremely hedonistic and what's the word? There's a lot of promiscuity, and a lot of people forget true Christic principles, and this is not because they're bad people or they're evil. They just have lost their way, like so many people on this planet have. They just don't understand the truth necessarily. So, they will engage in promiscuous sex, taking a lot of alcohol and drugs, which, I don't necessarily, I'm not saying is necessarily like immoral, because I do believe that people have the right to do whatever they want with their own temple, as long as they're not forcing it on other people. And take whatever substances they want to expand their consciousness in different ways. So that's not the issue, but I'm just kind of giving a little bit of insight into the fact that the fashion industry can be extremely hedonistic. And I'm not saying I posted a link to this particular Twitter thread, which was from a citizen journalist / truth seeker who'd kind of looked into the whole Balenciaga thing and had kind of gone into the Instagram profiles of the stylist, Lotta Volkova, and her husband, Adam Alba or something, I forget the name, and then also one of her friends who's a creative director at Vetements, whose name I completely forget. My days of being obsessed with the fashion industry are long behind me, so I don't really know or keep up with who's the creative director of which fashion house, and to be honest, I don't really care. But he kind of went through their Instagrams, and I think we need to be careful about accusing these people of being PDs, I'm just going to use that abbreviation, or consuming or creating CP, or being Satanists, because we don't necessarily have compelling enough evidence that they are. But just from what they revealed on these people's Instagrams, it's quite problematic. Like, we know at the very least that Lotta Volkova, he did the most comprehensive breakdown of her, who was the stylist on the Balenciaga campaign. She has some problematic tastes, okay? And that is as far as I will go, and that is as much as we know without a shadow of a doubt, just by looking at her Instagram, which is now private, but I will post a link to the Twitter thread. I also posted it in my Telegram, and I'll post a link to my Telegram as well if you guys want to check what I'm posting in there. Some of the pictures that she had posted were, there was one in particular that was, a pin-up, the pin-up artwork from like the 50s and the 60s that would show like, very coquettish women, looking really feminine and in lingerie, high heel stockings. She'd posted that kind of artwork, but it was off a toddler wearing high heels, a bikini and makeup. There was another one that she posted of a child who had been dismembered and all its organs were spilling out, and it's like in some garden, and this is art. Okay, so she's also posted various satanic imagery, so like a woman tied to a pentagram with a ball above her, and then hashtag the devil made me do it, hashtag Moloch. So we know that she thinks that being satanic is cool and aesthetically interesting. We know that she finds children being sexually objectified aesthetically interesting and cool. We know that she finds children being murdered and tortured aesthetically interesting and cool. Okay, nobody can dispute that because that's what she's posted on her Instagram. There's also another picture where she's looking really evil and eating what I assume is a piece of meat, animal meat. I hope it's a piece of animal meat. And then the hashtag cannibal Lotta. So we know that she thinks that comparing herself to a cannibal is also aesthetic and cool. So this is the kind of value system that these influencers and tastemakers who are basically dictating our cultural aesthetic are into. That's what they're into, okay? These are not God-sourced Christic people. So I don't think it's necessarily that they're deliberately telling you that they're PDs or that they're Satanists. I think that they are just letting slip what they're into and what their value system is, and that they actually don't think it's a problem that kids are posing with bondage teddy bears. Like I remember I went to this was years ago, like more than 10 years ago, when I was in Berlin, and I went around a whole bunch of museums, and there was one particular museum, I forget the name because I went to so many, but they had an exhibit talking about the history of Pride in Berlin. And, you know, Berlin's really famous for its Pride marches. And I was shocked by the videos that I saw. Now, I'm not trying to make a direct link between the LGBT community and this, although that link is there, and I'll explain that later. You know, let me just explain first, and then I'll add, you know, the caveats and the disclaimers. There were photos at this Pride March of people doing BDSM scenes in public. There was another photo of somebody who had brought a toddler to the Pride March, and the toddler was also dressed up in BDSM fetish gear, okay? I'm not joking. I was horrified and shocked. And they were displaying this on the exhibit as if there was nothing wrong with it, as if this was just normal. And look, I'm not saying, you know, I'm not making any disparaging comments about the LGBT community and saying that they're responsible for this, because I think if straight people had a straight Pride March, you know, I'm not saying that I don't think that straight people would also think that this is okay. Now, there are some problematic associations with the PD community and the LGBTQ community, because the PD community are trying to insist that theirs is a sexual orientation and that they deserve inclusivity and acceptance as well, which I will never ever stand for. Okay, I'm aware that a lot of PD is caused by trauma and CSA, and for that they have my deepest compassion, but I will never ever stand by their orientation or even accept that it's an orientation. It's a result of trauma, it's an inversion. They need healing, okay? I'm just gonna say that, okay? They need healing, and that's what we should maintain. We should never ever accept or legitimize PD in our community and in our society, ever. And this is what I believe people are trying to do, especially that particular community. They are trying to normalize their kinks, as they put it. It's not a kink, it's a pathology, and y'all need help. So, you know, and we have to look at the way our society has already, like the well has already been poisoned for many generations, to the point where a lot of people in the mainstream are dismissing this as like an honest mistake, and, you know, yes, they need to be held accountable, but they're not seeing this for something as bad as what it is, because frankly they're closer to it. Like, our society, I've talked about this in multiple videos, has become so distorted when it comes to our sexuality, that, you know, they think it's okay because, you know, like 1 minute you're like just having casual sex and that's fine, you can just fuck whoever you want because it's just sex, not recognizing that this is actually something extremely sacred, that when you share intimacy with yourself, you know, with another person in that way, you literally become one flesh. It's an alchemical wedding, okay? It's a divine marriage. That's what sex is. And we've just treated it like it's nothing. So in a society that treats sex like it's nothing, of course, they're going to treat, you know, orgies like they're nothing. They're going to treat sex with underage people like it's nothing, until it just becomes more and more, society becomes more and more degraded. And it's not just, you know, these people. You know, I remember when I was working in London as a model, I took a part-time job at Hollister. And if you don't know, Abercrombie and Hollister, who are sister companies, they hire models to work there as greeters. And I remember I was appointed to work in Gilly Hicks, which is like their underwear kind of sister brand. And there would be parents who would come in and buy, like, the target demographic of Gilly Hicks and Hollister is about 14 to 18, but generally the customers that would come in there to buy stuff from there were much, much younger, or it would be like parents or grandparents or aunties and uncles buying for their kids, and the kids were generally about 10 to 14. I would say I would see more often than in the 14 to 18 category. And yeah, they would just be buying underwear that would say "Hello Boys" for their like 12-year-old niece or their 12-year-old granddaughter. So this is like where we're at as a society. There was another article that I posted in my Telegram, and I'll also post that directly because I think y'all need to understand the background of how we've got here as a society. And there are two weapons that the dark forces have used to corrupt humans. Christ Sophia template, which obviously corrupts our sexuality, and one of the main weapons that they use is pornography, and obviously pornography that they then use to seep into mainstream, just mainstream content, films, fashion, Hollywood and the fashion industry has now absorbed softcore pornography. Like, softcore pornography used to be a whole separate category. Like, y'all remember when Marilyn Monroe did that nude shoot that Hugh Hefner then bought the rights to and published and, completely humiliated her. That would be considered today, that shoot that back then was considered pornography, softcore pornography, that would be considered today some artistic nude. It would not be considered a big deal. So that's kind of where we're at now. So a lot of people can't see the wood for the trees when it comes to this, because our cultural lens through which we view sexuality has become so poisoned. So read the article that I'm going to post in the link in the description box below, and it basically charts a timeline of, just our mainstream culture from not just from Playboy, which is kind of the beginnings of modern pornography and is considered extremely tame and mild compared to what mainstream pornography is nowadays, but also Hugh Hefner's main influence, which was, I think, Alfred Kinsey, is that his first name? Kinsey, the Kinsey Reports, and he did these studies on human sexuality, where he basically revealed that humans were so much more sexually deviant than was otherwise believed, which was not actually the case. His data subset was not a full, accurate representation of the populace. It was mostly sexual deviants, perverts, people who were already in prison for committing sexual crimes, some homosexual activists. Not that I'm comparing those to sexual deviants and criminals. I'm just saying that skewed the data set to say that, the average man likes to have sex with other men, this number of, this percentage, when actually that wasn't the case, because a large number of his interviewees were homosexual activists. And he also, and this is the most compelling and disturbing piece of information, he also commissioned PDs to basically perform experiments on children and to basically monitor how often and for how long they would orgasm, and had like another person in the room, timing it. So he's a sick fuck. And this guy, there's fucking statues to this guy. Where is the statue to Kinsey? Hang on, let me look this up. I want to make sure that I get this right. Disgusting. Bronze sculpture of Alfred C. Kinsey marks 75th anniversary of Kinsey Institute. There's an institute for this guy, for this motherfucker. Bloomington for a new bronze sculpture. This was published in September 9th, 2022. A new bronze sculpture memorializing Alfred C. Kinsey's significant and enduring contributions to Indiana University now sits at Bloomington campus. Somebody needs to destroy this. Kinsey. Okay, I do apologize. I have been using my camera so much that the battery died, and I know I should have charged it. So yes, I won't be able to read the rest of that article, but I'll post the article in the description below so you can read the rest of it. It's absolutely horrifying. And in the other article that it's, who's the author of the article? I can't remember. It was somebody that I found on Facebook, but she's in the truth community, and she's obviously done a lot of work researching the pornography industry and how much since the advent of Playboy and then Penthouse and then Hustler and the normalization of pornography and the acceptance of pornography in mainstream culture and society, how much it's, you know, caused a breakdown of our sexuality and the breakdown of families, the family unit, marriage and society. And she kind of compares statistics on all kinds of things: teen pregnancy, sexual abuse, child sexual abuse, the breakdown of marriage. All of this stuff is a very, very comprehensive article, so you should definitely read that. And it can all pretty much be traced back to Alfred Kinsey and his so-called studies on human sexuality. And she kind of compares it with other studies that were available at the time, which actually showed that generally college-aged students, like male college students, generally felt like having sex before marriage was not conducive to a healthy marriage and sex life, so they tended to kind of save themselves till marriage. So that was what the mainstream view on sexuality, that there were studies that actually revealed that this was the mainstream view on male sexuality, in contrast to Kinsey's work, which was not taken an accurate sample of, you know, the populace. And somehow that ended up becoming more popular. You know why? Because sex sells, and it's very, it's just very attractive for those who are farming humanity. Those of you who know, who are deep divers, will know exactly what I'm talking about. To just poison our sexuality and feed on our loosh, because, you know, the purest kind of loosh is sexual misery, and particularly sexual misery from very pure essence beings. So children in particular is like the most pure, delicious type of loosh that archons like to feed on. So, you know, I'm sure most of you have had the experience as young people in your 20s, in your teens, of going through, you know, sexual or relational misery. And that's part of what myself and those who are on the Chrysophia Grail bloodlines and who are doing this work, quantum field work and other types of ascension technologies that we're bringing to you, are trying to basically heal and restore these inversions and bring people back to the truth. You know, the truth of God, the truth of love, the truth of Chrysophia, and our true hierogamical union template of divine masculine and divine feminine in sacred union. That is the truth of who we are, and anything that deviates from that truth is not human nature, it's human innate, it's the nature of who we are as an enslaved and traumatized species, but it's not our true divine nature. So there are, you know, I'm not here to like, you know, create a witch hunt for these people. I think that these people need help. I think that they're traumatized. In that particular thread, you know, from the citizen researcher on Twitter, he said kind of further down, if you read it all the way to the bottom, he goes, oh, they've basically admitted, you know, the three of them, Lotta Volkova, her husband, and her friend who's creative director of Etamon. He goes, they've admitted that they're PDs. And he basically included a quote from a particular interview where they said, oh, someone said that we all grew up on Cipron and radiation, which is why we're all so fucked up. I don't think that that's necessarily admitting that they're PDs. They've said that somebody wrote that. I would like to see the original source article, why somebody would write that, if it's true. But if it is true, these are people who are severely traumatized, that need help, that need God, that need to be brought back to God, that need to repent, and that just need to find their way and stop finding such fucked up things cool, stop finding such demonic things aesthetic, because it's not cool to worship Satan. It's not cool to make art that celebrates, you know, children who have been murdered and tortured, like she's posting on her Instagram. Another thing that, you know, people picked up on in the Balenciaga campaign was there was a book by a particular artist, and that artist had produced, it wasn't the same book, but he had done another book called Fire in the Sun, and it was basically paintings of children covered in blood, like toddlers covered in blood. Some paintings, you know, it showed them, you know, holding missing limbs and things like that. So, you know, this is the kind of art that these people like to look at. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that they do those things, that they perpetrate those things. We don't have evidence of that, but they obviously think that that's aesthetic and that's cool. And, you know, like Gail Dines, who, if you don't know about the work of Gail Dines, you definitely should look her up. She is a radical feminist, and I normally don't really agree with a lot of feminist doctrine and literature, but I do agree with a lot of what Gail Dines says. Her main thing that she focuses on is the pornography industry, and how, you know, just how much it degrades, you know, just human relationships and masculine consciousness in particular, the way it targets the masculine. And yeah, her work's very, very comprehensive, and it's actually horrifying. Like, the more I kind of followed her and the more, you know, I looked at what she was saying and the things that she was researching, the more I just couldn't stand for anything to do with the pornography industry. Is why I will absolutely not date anybody who looks at porn, who watches porn. My boyfriend doesn't watch porn. I have a massive boundary about that. And it was actually, I think I've talked about this in previous videos, it wasn't even like, for anyone who says, oh, it's so hard to find guys who don't look at porn, that's not true at all. You're just hanging out with the wrong people. Before this relationship, I had 2 previous relationships with guys who absolutely would not look at it and would not watch it and did not like the industry at all. And at that time, I did not have this boundary or this standard around the pornography. I didn't think there was anything wrong with it, mainly because I wasn't really looking at it that much, because it doesn't really, it targets the male gaze. It's not really made for women, most of it, so I just wouldn't really watch it that much because I never found anything appealing about it. But both of these guys, one after the other, were just like, it's horrible, it's misogynistic, it's disgusting. I find the stuff that is out there is extremely degrading and offensive to women, and not just to women but to men as well. That they, you know, that how they're portraying us, they just weren't comfortable with it. And both of these guys had I would say had a lot of work to do on their feminine integration. You know, they had some areas where they were both still quite misogynistic, which is why those relationships didn't work out. And even they were saying that. So, okay, was that all I wanted to talk about today? I think there was something else disclosure related that I wanted to talk about, but was it something to do with aliens? I can't remember. Oh yes, yeah. Okay, so the Died Suddenly documentary, I posted about that also on my social media. So, you know, I give that a watch, guys. I do think it was an interesting documentary. Some people posted, you know, within the truth community that firstly, that some of the data was misleading and completely discredits the movement, which is fair. So if you're follow me on Facebook, because then you'll see that full thread of where people posted corrections from our community, posted corrections on where they thought that the data was misleading, why they didn't like Stu Peters. I'm not a particular fan of Stu Peters either. I believe he made that documentary Watch the Water, which was completely debunked and discredited. So that kind of calls into question just his journalistic integrity in the first place. And other people criticised it because they said it was unnecessary fear-mongering. Personally, I don't think anyone outside the truth community is really going to watch it. Maybe some of them, you know, more mainstream people who have loved ones who died suddenly, because there are more and more of them all the time, as the stats are showing, might be interested to watch it, to kind of understand what's been going on and maybe why their loved ones just passed away suddenly. I mean, I know several people that have died suddenly in the last year who were all young. And I believe it was caused by, you know what. So yeah, give that a watch. Don't go sharing it around. Like, I wouldn't be sending it directly to people who you think that you need to wake up. I mean, you do you, but personally, I'm not going to be, I'll post it on my networks, on my social media, encouraging people to watch it if they want to watch it, but I'm not going to be sending it directly to people that are for the agenda, who need to see certain things, because people are choosing their timelines at the moment, and I'm not going to interfere with anyone's free will. People can do what they want at this point. Like, it doesn't really concern me that much. And that's just where I'm at with it, because I do think that it just causes more hostility and more resistance in the first place, and creates too much division between our community and mainstream community, which I do think is not what we need right now, because with this steady stream of disclosure, and like I've said, I don't think that this particular Balenciaga thing or the died suddenly thing is going to be like, yes, it's all out now. It's going to be a gradual thing. And the disclosure is going to happen so gradually that it's just going to be like, oh yeah, of course we knew that so-and-so, bad people are running things, It's going to be like that. That's how it's always been, that's how it was with the war on terror. Oh yeah, we always knew that they were doing bad stuff over there. It's just like, no, you didn't. Like, you thought that they were heroes. You thought that they were bringing democracy. But people, that's how people are, okay? They're just going to, and it's like that. I'll do a separate video talking about kind of NPCs and background people, as Dolores Cannon calls them, and my theories on that and what's really going on there. But yeah, with NPCs, I mean, I know some people don't like that term, but mainstream people, muggles, whatever you want to call it, they I think what's going on with their consciousness is they are, because again, they come from the Matrix, they belong to the Matrix, they're essentially like a hive mind. We're all a hive mind to some degree, but some of us are able to tune into higher frequency bandwidths. They're only be able to tune into a certain frequency bandwidth that they're plugged into, basically. So in order to get people to wake up, we have to switch the frequencies, okay, the frequency bandwidths, and that's by keeping the conversation going. And by keeping the conversation going, we end up being influencers and tastemakers, and decide what the kind of collective narrative is, which is why speaking your truth is so important. I think I'm going to leave it there. There's other things that I can talk about, but I just want to kind of stay on topic for this video, and I'll do other videos talking about other things that are kind of going on at the moment. If you have video requests, then by all means post them in the description box below. And yes, I also want to announce that my Facebook group is now ready. Well, it's not ready at the time of filming, but by the time this video goes up, it will be ready. I've been working on it the last few days. So it's for women only, like I said in the last video. Unfortunately, sorry guys, I may do another separate Facebook group for guys as well, but in this group, I want to keep it just for the girls, because we're going to be talking about womb healing. We're going to be talking about Christosphere, divine union, sexual alchemy. So, some of those topics are a little bit sensitive to the girls, and we just want to keep it private, and we want to keep it like a safe space where women can discuss, really personal things that affect the journey of feminine awakening. So, yeah, that's it, guys. I will see you in the next video. Peace out. One love.